What does influence mean to you? I say the word influence. What's influence mean?
Influence to me means the positive and negative factors that drive your decisions and your trajectory. It can be, and I say positive and negative because there are influencers. We all have folks that we will call, for lack of better words, quote unquote heroes. These are the people that we desire to emulate. And so you can have the positive influence of, I really want to be like that person. They make it look so silky smooth because their preparation off the field, off the court, in practice is so dedicated, so focused, so driven that their preparation makes it seem like they are a natural. But in fact, it's the hard work that happens in the darkness, behind the scenes, that folks don't even realize they're doing.
Welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast with Anton, where we unpack all things influence and we help leaders particularly find their influence by talking to amazing humans and finding out what influence means to them, who they've been influenced by and who they have influenced. And this podcast episode, proudly sponsored by the Guinea Group of companies. The Guinea Group helps leaders upgrade, upskill, uplift their teams and their influence. So team, welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast with Anton. We are at, I don't know how many episodes now, 60, 70, 80 maybe, and we're loving it. And we've got another professional podcaster with us, so this is going to be a great chat. I met Damon through our coach JT Fox, and it's been a great relationship since. And Damon is actually an AI strategist, a healthcare innovator, an entrepreneur, and an author with more than 2 decades of experience spanning healthcare, government, tech, and data-driven transformation. I love that. He works at the intersection of AI, business strategy, and human-centered outcomes with a strong focus on turning emerging technologies into practical, measurable value. He currently serves as the Associate Director of Alliance Development at Novo Nordisk.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Cool. Go, mate. Woot, woot. From 2020, where he leads and supports strategic partnerships that advance innovation across healthcare and life sciences. His role centers on collaboration, ecosystem development, and aligning external innovation with organizational priorities. Welcome, Damon, the one and only.
Thank you. Anton, thank you so much for having me, man. It's really great to be here on your show. I appreciate the invite, and I appreciate being able to engage your audience, man. Thanks for having me.
Grateful, brother. Grateful. Now, where did it all start, Damon? Do you want to go back and tell that story again that we were talking about off air? Because one of the questions that I'm going to ask you, mate, is, who was your biggest influence in your life? Because we're talking about it. Actually, before we get there, what does influence mean to you? I say the word influence. What's influence mean?
Influence to me means the positive and negative factors that drive your decisions and your trajectory, right? That it can be, and I say positive and negative because there are influencers. We all have folks that we will call, for lack of better words, quote unquote heroes. These are the people that we desire to emulate. And so you can have the positive influence of, I really want to be like that person. And so we were joking about, Michael Jordan and elite basketball players and athletes before we started this. And one of the things that we were saying is they make it look so silky smooth because their preparation off the field, off the court, in practice is so dedicated, so focused, so driven that their preparation makes it seem like they are a natural. But in fact, it's the hard work that happens in the darkness, behind the scenes, that folks don't even realize they're doing. But I say, too, that it's the negative influence as well, because one of the things that attracted us to each other was my speech at Mega Success. And that speech was around the both positive and negative influence of my father, Willie Davis. He was an amazing guy, incredible character, gregarious, loving, very joyful, engaging individual, the kind of person that really everybody would like to be around. Even if you are the quietest, most introverted person, he would engage you at whatever level. The challenge that Dad had was that he had no money mentors. And so the short version of his story was he came from absolute destitute circumstances in Kansas City, Kansas. He rose to the top of consulting in the DC area with several partners. And at the end of his career in that consulting firm, they exited for a massive number that any entrepreneur would be very, very happy to exit their business with. The challenge Dad had was, as I said, he had no money mentors. And so he bought shiny things instead of assets. He bought liabilities, and those liabilities will absolutely drain you. They will nickel and dime you, or $100 and $1,000 you right out of whatever exit you have made from your entrepreneurial endeavors. And so I say that to say, my father, while I loved him dearly, the negative influence that I took from him was that his lack of understanding of money left him, sadly, completely flat broke at the end of his life, divorced because of it, and he died, sadly, alone. And it was a negative experience that has caused a positive influence for me to be motivated towards entrepreneurship, towards finding people like you who are incredible influences on others, who are studying how to make themselves and others better. And this is what drives me, is having been under my dad's influence, I'm now at a point of trying to find positive influences in the ways that I need to actually build my net worth, my family's legacy, and drive my entrepreneurial desires.
Mate, even better the second time round. Thank you so much. Beautifully articulated. What a story. What a way to learn about the importance of money mentors, to watch someone you know and love who's been at the top of the money tree to actually leave this planet really sort of destitute to a degree. That's watch it affect a whole family based on a lack of sort of fiscal financial knowledge, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if I tell you, my father, a perfect example of the poor monetary decisions that he made. He sold me the house that I'm living in today. Wonderful. And he didn't try to make a big bank on it because he had a whole big bank that he had made from the sale of his own company. This is an individual who, as a man with a grown son and no other kids, there was no big family. It was just him and his wife. They built a mansion, custom theater, custom bar, custom aquarium, huge pool out the side. But you have to heat all those things. You have to cool all those things. You have to do all of the maintenance. You have to do all of the landscaping. All of these services and utilities cost money. And it was a big, huge, showy thing, but it was also a massive drain on the account. They didn't need a 5-bedroom, 3-car garage place for the two of them. And I'm speaking openly about this because I've spoken with his ex-wife about it. We've commiserated over the challenges that my dad's decisions presented. So I'm not telling stories out of school. I'm telling these stories hopefully to uplift someone else to say, holy crap, I'm on that trajectory, or my dad is on that trajectory. We need to change things now.
Right. Beautiful, mate. I love how you put that positive spin on it. You're doing things with the right reasons and the right intent to upskill, and hopefully upskill people in relation to their fiscal control. You know, let's keep it in control, and let's not spend silly amounts of money on stuff we don't need, I guess, would probably be the biggest message. And let's invest, wisely. So well said. Beautiful. And I always tell the story, Damon, thank you, of being very broke and nearly being bankrupt and being where your dad was, but it wasn't a spending thing. It was an economy thing, and it was a diversity thing, and a few other bad decisions. I wasn't great at business back then, but I can tell you, gee, it's strange, your relationship when you aren't financial. So I get that your dad was divorced. I know Mrs. G was very unhappy for a couple of years with her husband. And so it took it's taken a 5 or 10 year journey to get us back to sort of where we were. And yeah, big challenges.
Let me ask you, what was part of your mental shift that got you on a positive trajectory? How did you make the U-turn from where you were to where you are?
Mate, thanks for asking. So after 100 days of being anxious, and our old business manager said one day, and this was a turning point. She said, what account do I pay the phone bill out of? And I said, I don't know. And she said, you do know. But I just didn't at the time because it spent 100 days anxious. And anxiety is a real weird thing. It's a fear of the future. So I didn't know what was going to happen because we lost a $2.5 million contract on a Friday. And so Monday there was nothing coming in. And of course we had to close that business down. And at the same time, we had a property portfolio. And for whatever reason, it was like the American property crash where all our properties halved in value. So we had no rent coming in, but we had a fair bit of lending against them. So we had no rent to pay home loans. We had no real money coming in from the business, which was our livelihood. Thank God my wife was a teacher, so she had a wage coming in of some description. And so the shift was after 100 days, believe it or not, I couldn't work out what account to pay a phone bill out of. And so Alison said to Julie, we need to sort of make sure Anton's okay because he's not okay at the moment. And Mrs. G sent me down to get some medication for anxiety, which was interesting because I never thought I'd need that. And then I came home with the script, and she said, "Oh, why haven't you got it filled?" And I remember saying to her, "Well, I talked myself into this. I'm going to talk myself out of this." And so it was just and for whatever, and I was sort of a triathlete back then. I was quite competitive, and the day that this stuff happened, that I realised that we'd have to rebuild and we'd potentially be bankrupt because people were advising us to do that because it was just inconceivable to have a $2 million debt, no money coming in, and to try and keep that sort of debt and to pay it back. But we were always, well, if we got ourselves into the position, I'm going to get us out of it. And so, but getting yourself out of a position, Damon, is talking yourself out of it first. You've got to have that conversation with yourself. I am enough. I am capable. This was just a bad decision. The future's not the past. Like doing a bit of signal, in a bit of car.
I am not my mistakes, right? Yeah.
Thanks for asking that question, and that might be useful for all our viewers out there too. One contract, no diversity in business, and the economy changes, Damon. So, you know what I mean? One contract.
Yeah.
I'll never do it again. I'll never.
All the eggs were in one basket is what you're saying. And so when that basket breaks, all the eggs. Yeah, I got you. It makes sense.
Love, thank you so much for asking. And I'm going to take you back a moment or two if I could. And the golden rule of interviewing, Damon, as you know, is to listen to understand, not to reply, and don't come back with a statement or question that's relevant 5 minutes ago. I'm going to break the golden rule. You said we're together because I heard you speak on stage. We're actually together because you bought me a coffee.
And now you're paying it forward. I love it. That's right. I surely did. We stood right there at Starbucks, and you tried to hand me some money. I said, "Come on, man. Like that's right. No, that's ridiculous, man. I got you. This is fine."
And so that was never missed those little acts of service and acts of kindness. So still grateful.
I'm so glad.
And absolutely. I just saw that the willingness to serve. So I thought, here's a dude that I've got to get to know. So
that's in my heart, man. It's absolutely true. My willingness to serve it runs deep, and
mate. And you sort of, as you were talking, you sort of reminded me of a story. So on Sunday morning, we had breakfast with my brother-in-law, who's just got a new girlfriend at the age of 60, and they feel like they're going to be pretty tired. He's just broken up with a long-term girlfriend and found another relationship, which is beautiful. So we're sitting at the table, and my wife and I have been together for 35 years, Damon.
Congratulations. Good.
I know, mate. You're just a beautiful human, and I'm just so grateful. I'm lucky. And it was really interesting, and Jules and I pondered on this afterwards because Sean, Julie's brother, brought Tracy, his new girlfriend, up to speed of the last 50 or 60 years and all the family members, and he had to tell her the stories about what Jules and I did, where we met, and so she was educated when we turned up. And after it, Jules and I both had this BFO, this blinding flash of the obvious, that we've been together 35 years. We don't have to talk about the stuff. We just know it. We just say, remember this happened, da-da-da-da.
Your history is shared.
We have this shared history. Whereas I know it's not the same story. It's just very sort of same, but different. Like when you don't have that shared history, you've sort of got to somehow then change. I love that, change the narrative and bring people on the journey with you to understand that this was hard for you to be without a story, without a journey, to not have a shared history with someone. So
Absolutely. And there's a lot of people too so to keep with this adoption reunion narrative, I will have an entire shared history with my adoptive family, but there are cases where a couple has stayed together after placing a child for adoption. So they thought they were going to be broken up or break up. They place the child for adoption. They fight their way back together. And there are times when a entire nuclear family has continued without the adoptee in place. And there are even cases where a circumstance happens in the nuclear family and a second, third, or fourth child is placed for adoption out, and they're the only one while the other siblings are still in the family. And so when they find the birth family, they have this holy crap moment like, oh, I was the only one. And so it can be really tough because some people are very thankful that their family is together and everybody's happy. Some folks struggle with it a little bit, right? You walk in the house for the reunion and you sit down and you look at the mantle and all those family photos from these memories are there and the whole crew is together, but you're not in the photo. And so that can be very challenging for people to think, if they had worked harder, they could have kept me. But the thing that I like to remind folks of is the butterfly effect. If they had kept you, those photos wouldn't exist, right? Because they would have made an entirely different set of choices. So if the young couple who, in the original scenario, placed their first child for adoption, then fought their way back to each other, and then continued to have more children, had made a different decision, that young couple would have struggled through maintaining the first child, fighting through keeping a job, fighting through all, and they might not have even stayed together because the stress of having a child at a young age, for example, could have been so challenging. And so those family photos might not exist at all because all of their decisions following the one that said, we're going to keep this child, would be totally different. There's a lot of decision trees in the adoption continuum. I'm going to give you another one. There's a huge discussion among adoption, in the adoption community, and with those that I call uninformed outsiders. And the folks tend to think of adoption and abortion as two sides of the same coin, but they're not two sides of the same coin. They're two completely different coins. Think about this. You can't choose adoption if you have already selected to end the pregnancy. So the decisions are, will I maintain this pregnancy or not? If I maintain the pregnancy, along that decision tree, the next possible option is, am I going to parent this child or not? Right? So you can't have, they are linear and there's no way to separate them. You can't make a end of pregnancy decision after you've made the decision to place a child for adoption. It just doesn't work. So these are the kinds of things that I like to make sure people are aware of. And I was very grateful to the adoptees who taught me that lesson, because it was eye-opening to think about how folks, unfortunately, ignorantly, assume that you can do one without the other, that you can just make one choice in the absence of another, but you can't. You have to make one choice before the other.
Just blows my mind, Damon, how big a deal this is for people, because you talked about people that are a bit ignorant to it, and I probably am, because I don't even know if I know any adoptees.
Yeah.
And that's,
I promise you do.
That's right.
The thing. That's the thing. Here's a funny thing. I've said this to somebody at Mega Success. There were adoptees in the room with us. We'll never know, because that's not what we were there for. And so it won't come up. So I raise it with everybody because I want to find who the other people are. So I don't know if you saw, but two of the people at Mega Success, Lauren Sheeran and Misty Gonzalez, are two other adoptees. And I've been intentional about telling everybody that I meet, and those two wonderful women said, "Oh, you were adopted? Me too." And so by virtue of me telling everybody that I meet, I'm able to pluck them out of whatever situation we're in. So if we're at a business conference, as we were at Mega, if we're standing at the coffee shop, if we're in a party or a social event, I tell everybody because I want folks who want to be able to talk about it to be able to do so. And occasionally I meet people who don't want to talk about it, and that's fine. I do not force them. That is their decision, but I want them to at least have the open opportunity. And again, if you're not in an environment or if you're not presented the opportunity to say something about it, it'll never come up. So I promise you, there's a significant number of people there in that community that we were just in who are adopted, have an adopted sibling, have adopted a child themselves. Promise you.
Who are,
Promise.
yeah, no, I get it. Who are touched by adoption.
Yeah.
Holy. Unbelievable, isn't it? And I noticed that Lauren was good enough to get on a podcast with you, which is amazing.
She was lovely.
It's on the to-do list.
Yeah.
Mate,
Misty's actually is out there too. So I put both episodes into some of our group chats. I'm happy to send it to you after.
Would you please?
Yeah.
I actually, isn't it interesting? Like when I hear you talk about it, because it's not near and dear to my heart at the time, you go, "Oh, cool, that would have been a cool chat." But now that I get, like when you know the why, when you get it deeper and you get it down into your hippocampus, down here, which is the memory part of your brain linked to your amygdala and your limbic system. When it's emotionally connected, you go, far out. I really have to. I have to hear more about this story. So
yeah, it creates a different investment. It's true.
So invested. Hey, just while we're talking about this in your podcast, I'd love to know. So I'm probably up to 60 or 70. We've done. You're probably number 5 this week. So I've got a bit of time. Yeah, a bit of time before Christmas, and so ramping them up. And Deb, thank you so much. Deb is trying to get us, as many podcast chats as possible while I've got some time in my calendar.
That's brilliant, man. That's the way to do it. Stack them, rack them, and stack them. Get them in the can. That is the way to do it. Yeah.
Have a pipeline. And and I think for me, actually the most exciting one is that a lady and I, who is also an Ironman triathlete, she somehow, her and I have decided to do a podcast in a tri-suit and tell people what it's like to, be an Ironman triathlete.
That's awesome.
And then we'll put that out, and she wants to do a keynote. I kid you not. I think it was her idea. I don't think this would have been my idea. She said, why don't we do a keynote like at a Mega Success or something in tri-suits? And I went,
whoa.
And I said,
nice to meet you, Anton.
I don't know that dude. Who's that? Who's that up there? Anyway, but talking about podcasts, have you monetized? And just for everyone out there, have you monetized it yet? Was that the goal? Like what have you done?
It was never the goal, and I didn't. So what I chose to do was have my show be listener supported. So I started a Patreon account, and I just would periodically say to the community, listen, if this show is meaningful to you, I'd love your support. Think of it like buying me a cup of coffee. If you find these stories valuable, healing, whatever, and you want to support the work and keep it going, because it's not without expense. There's the platform, there's my time, there's the editing, any effort to put forth social media to promote, or just create awareness. I don't even think of it as promoting as much as just don't forget, these stories are out there and they're very different. All of it has a cost, be it monetary, time, or otherwise. And so I'm of the opinion that the listener base should have the opportunity, if they are so compelled, to support a show that they find dear. And so that was what I chose to do. And I also recognize the emotional weight of my show. And I didn't want to take you from, I mean, you can be in absolute tears listening to my show. The stories are just so powerful. And I didn't want to go into a tire commercial or a mattress commercial. You see what I mean? And then be like, we're back. I, I
That's
didn't,
not your thing.
I didn't want to do that.
Right.
So I chose not to put solicited commercials in my show.
No, I love it. I love it. Thank you for listening or viewing our Find Your Influence podcast with Anton Guinea. Another great chat. Please be one of the 10% of people who follow and subscribe and like our videos so that you can get more of them and you can hear more of our amazing conversations, the conversations that I get to have and that I get to share.